Welcome to my shooting masterclass. I've wanted to do this for a while, and I've put out so much information out there in terms of being on YouTube or being on Instagram that if you wanted to go through and curate everything, I'm sure much of what I'm talking about or going to talk about today would all be in there. But I also understand sometimes it's extremely valuable to have everything in one place. Also, I love the fact that I can do something like this, answer your questions, and then not be interrupted in terms of any time constraints by an app or anything in regard to that. So I want to be as much of value to you today as possible. And hopefully where you start when we begin this to where we finish, your understanding of the principles that I teach and all my players start to go through will start to make a bit more sense, and you can implement them on your own or with your players. So I want you to think and take on this mindset, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, of, nobody's not a shooter. They're just not yet a shooter. And I believe that we're given the right blueprint and the understanding of how things can be much easier. Anybody can start to become better at it. And what you're going to see is this is a process of simplification. It's a process of subtraction versus addition. The more that we can take away, right, the more easily it is for us to be able to repeat what it is that we're doing. And so a lot of times when we go and we do something new, we think, I have to add this, I have to add that. But if you can really attach to this idea of simplification, then everything is going to be that much easier for you in the long run. And I think it's an easier thing for any player looking to make changes to attach to. Simple is one of those words that sometimes we think it's synonymous with easy, but it's not. Just because something's simple doesn't mean that you're going to do it today, master it, and be done with it. But it does mean that over a course of time, you'll see just how far simple can take you. Okay, so to get started today, we're going to go over the basics just to begin, and we're going to start to branch there or pull things out or progress. But I have my main man, Rance Russo, here to help me today. So Rance has been a member of my Keep Shooting Academy, Keep Shooting subscription for about 4 years, right? And yet Rance is going into his senior year of college now. So Rance is very familiar with a lot of the things that we do, and I don't know of anybody that'd be better suited to help me demonstrate as I teach. And sometimes I like to demonstrate, but I think me being able to point things out in terms of real time how things are happening, I think will be extremely valuable today. So Rance is going to be with me today. Again, he's been through it all. He knows just as much maybe as I do at this point. And so it will be a really good resource to go through. So to begin, everything that we're going to do is going to be centered on the body. So I know a lot of times when we think about shooting, the very first thing is we introduce the basketball. So if Rance was here, right, it may be the very first thing that somebody would say, okay, we're going to work on your shot today, and they give Rance the basketball. Now, the only problem with this is that as soon as we put this basketball into a player's hands, what tends to happen is this basketball tends to control the body, especially if you're not well versed in how we want things to move. We end up moving almost more so around the ball than us being the one that transfers energy into the basketball. So instead of just giving Rance this basketball, what we're going to do is we're going to go over how our body needs to be positioned. And this is important because our body positioning becomes everything. We make shots with how our body prepares. All right, so to start, what I'm going to have Rance do is he's going to start straight up and down. I want him to find your balance as much as possible. So find that balance straight up and down. And it may sound like it's kind of a strange thing, but I even want the player to feel almost weightless when you're standing up. So you have to be really connected to the balance that you're feeling when you're standing here like this, because the more that you can start to feel where your weight is, the easier this next step will be. And what I want Rance to do is I want him to sit down into his hips and just let his body fall as it is. So from the waist up, he's trying to stay a statue, but I want him just to sit down into his hips and maintain that full foot connection to the ground. Perfect. So where we want Rance to be here is at a place where if he stands straight up, he's balanced. If he goes down into his hips, he's just as balanced, right? We call this stacking our weight. The more we can stack the weight, the better. Can you turn that way? And then so we can, so high and then drop into those hips. Excellent, right? So you'll see that he's slightly angled this way, right? He's not forcing his chest up this way, because if he did this, he'd be in a really bad spot athletically. But he also, obviously we don't want to hinge at the waist this way. We want that chest up, sit back into our hips, and we're just kind of letting our body from the waist up kind of fall where it is in terms of as we start to sink down. We're not moving anything. Like I tell players, we're just trying to almost be a statue. Now, the really important part of this is that, stand up for me, Rance. Us being able to send our weight straight down means that on a shot, so what I'm just going to have Rance do is just jump. He's not going to shoot. But on a jump or on a shot, we can just go straight back up, right? That's what we're out to do. Everything that we're going to do is about creating this vertical energy. The more vertical energy we can create, the more we're going to be able to take advantage of everything else that we're going to do in terms of how the basketball is going to move up the body. All right. So it's really, really important at first that we just understand how to sink into our hips. Just a little cheat code, because I've worked with so many young kids. If a kid has problems sitting into their hips and they sit into their knees, so what would sitting into your knees look like? Yeah. See how I led here? If I have a kid that has a problem with that, what I'll tell them to do is I'll say, stand up tall, and now pretend that you're going to jump as high as you're going to jump, but then stop at the bottom, right? So do that for me, Rance. And right there, every player, almost every single player will naturally drop into their hips. So if you think about, if I wanted to jump as high as I could, I would move down this way. Well, that's the exact way that we want to start to prepare our body to get into a shot as well. So just a little tip, in case you're working with youngsters that don't know how to sit into their hips, that like to do things like this. It's a really good way to get them in the right spots, okay? So we have our body positioning. So Rance, you're going to drop down for me, okay? And now we're going to introduce this basketball, all right? Now, when I introduce this basketball, we're going to make this as easy as possible to begin. And I'll start to get into a little bit on how the hand is going to grip the basketball. But we'll talk about that more when we start to push through. So what I want Rance to do is I want him to hold this basketball. And what I want him to do is hold that basketball all the way out away from him like this. So what I'll have players do in the beginning is we'll extend everything out. He has a shooting hand behind the basketball. All right. Also, we want to try to get as full connection of the ball to the hand as possible on that ball. So we have hand behind. And then when it comes to the guide hand, that guide hand, everybody's going to be a little bit different. All right. But what you're going to see is by putting our body in the right spots to begin, a lot of times if a player has guide hand issues or any other issues for that matter, us just getting our body in the right spot and then our ball in the right spot, in which we call our one position, starts to be able to take care of other problems. So the goal is when you're fixing shots or when you're trying something and you notice all these weird things happening, yeah, you can stand up. You see all these weird things happening in a shot. Start with the body, start with the hands in terms of how we prepare, because one of those two things could fix four things. And that's what you're always after. You're always trying to find the root cause of problems. A lot of times what seems like the glaring problem, what seems like a guide hand issue, what seems like, oh, this ball's coming off the wrong finger, flaring elbow. All of that oftentimes stems from before the ball even starts to move. All right. So much happens with how we prepare that then translates to downstream effects as we start to move through our shot. So ball out, he's going to drop into his hips. And now what he's going to do is he's going to pretend like somebody has strings attached to his elbows and standing behind him, and they yanked on those strings, and he's going to bring that ball and connect here in this one position. All right. So can you show it to the side here? Strings pulled, connect, right? So right now, Rance is super connected, okay? This is very, very connected. Some may say it's uncomfortably connected. However, the more you drop down into your hips, so just go even lower, the more connected you can be. Now, he had the same connection, stand up, and now put all of your weight to your knees this way. And now look at this connection and start to move the ball and tell me how yeah. It's not going to work, right? It's not going to work. What's going to happen with a lot of players, if they're too connected in that one position, but their body's not in the right spot, they're going to feel like they're pulling the ball up. They're going to feel tension in their body. All this kind of stuff is going to work against them. So this is why the body, how it's prepared, is so important. So he's in this one position, right? We have this ball here. Now, your one position could be here, could be here. It's all a matter of figuring out for you what is most comfortable as you're starting to move through this. But what is important is when he's in this one, actually turn that way so they can see your shooting hand. When he's in this one here, hips drop straight down. So he's in such a good spot, chest up, chin up, eyes up, put his hands behind the ball. And that load right there is going to pave the way for us to get under the ball sooner rather than later. And that's our goal, all right? So when we're in this one position and how we're going to move the ball to the two position is going to be what we call a push. Now, this angle that he has just created from shoulder to elbow to wrist, we can maintain that angle on what we call a push to the two. And on that push to the two, he's going to bring that ball up exactly, and he's going to get this elbow, what I say, almost pointed to the rim. For some youngsters, this may be difficult. But I do recommend, even as a young player, that you start with an exercise as simple as what we're about to do, because it will start to enforce the habits or just the idea of sequence, the order in which things have to happen. So Rance drops down. He's in his one position right here, hand behind the ball. And Rance, all I want you to do, keeping your hips completely down, push that ball to the 2 and hold. Push, hold, back down. Push, hold, back down. So go through 10 of those and just go super slow through it. I talk for a second. So why this becomes important is because it puts our body in the right spot, puts our hands in the right place, starts to get us acclimated to what sequencing is. Sequencing is the order in which things have to happen. Shooting is not simultaneous. No matter what anybody says, shooting is not simultaneous. It's sequential, right? Everything is sequential. So what he's starting to do here is start to groove this idea of ball starting to lead the way, because when he gets to this position here, stop. Now, this point of leverage that we've created, on top of him still being loaded down here, is where we are most powerful. It's where we can create the most energy. Now, really important that we note here, so bring that ball back down to the 1. As this ball moves, we talked about our body, right? So Rance, stand up for me. Stand up, ball in the 1. We talked about in the very beginning, our body positioning. When we drop down, we want to stack our weight down so we can send it back up, right? Now, if you think about this in terms of lines, and this is extremely important for people to understand, him right now, he's in a straight line. When he drops his weight straight down, he's no longer in a straight line, but his weight is stacked the same way to allow his body to go up in a straight line. If you think about how the body's moving vertically, we want this ball to take a similar path to that. Because if our body's going up in a straight line, how straight of a line can we start to move that ball up on? And that, along with the sequencing of ball starting to lead the way, is going to be where the power is going to come from. It's almost like getting double jumped on a trampoline. So if he was in his 1, and we know his body's going to come up, so drop, but he moved this ball way out here and then brought that ball back, his body's going up, but that ball is taking a backwards route to eventually go forward. So everything that you're looking at, you're just here to simplify. Now, what I do with a lot of players, I'll put them in their 1 position. Now, let's say you go to your 1. And if they have a hard time, let's say that you just keep loop a few out, right? But stay down, but loop it out. So let's say I have players that just can't feel that, right? So what I'll do is I'll put them in their 1, and I'll put my hand right here, knowing where this ball has to get to. And I ask them, I say, what's the quickest way for that ball to hit my hand, right? From that position that you're loaded in. And that's all that I have them do. And then right there, they start to feel what it is that they're trying to do in terms of how the ball starts to move up the body, right? But if I'm here and he loops out, right? First of all, you could feel how that ball's hitting this whole part of my hand and going backwards, right? But instead, we want to just go straight up. And then I tell them, try to break my hand, right? That's what we're trying to do every time we're trying to break the hand. So in the very beginning, those ball raises, super, super important just to understand this is how we prepare our body. This is where we prepare our hands. And this is the route that we want the ball to take. One more thing, you face the camera just because we could talk about it. So go to your 1 and then go to your ball raise 2, right? I want you to really take note of his elbows, and specifically this guide hand elbow. What you'll see some players that have problems with, when this elbow gets high up here, you see what this does to his shoulder, right? And now if his shoulder is at a place where it's not in line with his right shoulder, there's no symmetry here, there's going to be a bunch of pressure coming in from this side, okay? So what you almost want to think about when you're in your 1, think of your elbows working together as you're making that push to the 2, all right? We don't want this to flare out way out here. Think about those elbows kind of working together. You're going to look different from one person to the next is going to look different, but we're after as little amount of pressure on that basketball as possible, all right? So we got our raises down. We understand where our body's positioned. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop down, okay? Notice on his drop, he's still full foot connected to the ground. He's not just up on his toes, because if he's just up on his toes, as soon as he was go to move that basketball, his body would rock. So that's really important. We're trying to create stability. Drop down. We're going to go ball raise to the 2 on the push. And then very, very simple. Now he's just going to push up hips, arms, same time. Ball goes straight up, comes straight back down to you. Go. Excellent. And what I'll do in the beginning is I'll just coach a player through it. So we'll just say 1, 2, through. Excellent. 1, 2, through. Straight up. And in the beginning, so go like 4 or 5. In the beginning of this, as simple as this is, right, you're starting to get aware of the process in which you're trying to move the basketball. But you're also shooting at a target, which is yourself. So I'll challenge players. I want a completely quiet gym. I don't want that ball to hit the ground, because if you can't control that ball coming back down to yourself, there is no way you're going to be able to control where that ball is going at the hoop, right? So that's what one of the very first things we do, 1, 2, through. Now, to start to smooth this out, because this is a very segmented shot, is I'm now going to ask Rance to think about that same sequencing, to think about the same idea of 1, ball moves 2, and then through, but we're not going to stop the ball. So rather than stopping at these points in time, he's going to try to move through them, but keep the same order in which he was moving, right? Does that make sense? So slow motion reps, yeah. Slow motion reps, right? And just being really patient through. Now, what we're doing here, and one of the big reasons behind sequence and the order that's happening of 2 and then through, the sequence has to happen this way, because this ball, big shout out to Rob Fodor here, who just opened my eyes to a whole new world back in 2019 or 18. When he's starting to move this ball up, if he doesn't let that ball move first, because of the distance the ball has to travel, that ball's traveling 2 to 3 times the distance that the hips will. If he doesn't give that ball a little bit of a head start, what's going to happen is he's going to end up, let's say if everything moved together, what would it look like? Perfect. What happens is, as the body starts to come up, the body kind of craps out in terms of the power it can create. And then this ball hasn't gotten to its best point of leverage yet. So you'll see players oftentimes with very low releases from there, or you'll see kind of, hitch can come in, a variety of things can come in if the sequencing is off. So that's why that beginning part is so important, okay? So now, last little piece of this, let's just try to smooth it out. So why don't we go side view? Yeah, perfect. We'll go side view. And then what I want you to try to do, you put your whole focus on sequence, right? And then how fast can you start to go, right? How fast can you still move it? Excellent. And the goal here is that we want to get to a place where when we're moving through the shot, to anybody not trained in understanding this, they're going to look at it and say, oh, that's a 1 motion shot, right? Oh, that's all happening together. Not knowing that we just piece together little by little, right? How we can start to move through these points in time. Now, Rance has been doing this a long time. So Rance can go through, especially if he gets hot, things start clicking, you'll watch him shoot, and there's little to no stoppage at his 2 position, all right? In the beginning stage, when you're learning this, do not be afraid to have a little bit of stoppage in that 2, right? Because that at least is getting to you to your consistent point of leverage and a consistent place where you can almost feel like you're throwing a dart to the basket, all right? So don't be concerned if there's a little bit of stoppage. If you even go back, who's the best shooter in the world right now? Who'd you say? Steph, right? I would agree. Steph's probably the best shooter in the world. If you go back and even watch him at Davidson, right, when he was lighting it up in Davidson, there was still a noticeable little stop in his 2 position, right? Or where he got to his set point versus where he's at now, able to just fly through things, right? But we can't see that finished product and think all of a sudden, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do exactly what that guy did. Watch his progression from Davidson to his first couple of years in the league to where he is now, and you'll see that shot has evolved, right? The best players it's not like he wasn't the Steph Curry he is now at Davidson, as amazing as he was. He's progressively gotten better and better. So you can think about that the same way in terms of your evolutions as a shooter, right? If there's a little bit of stoppage to begin with, fine. But what you're going to be concentrated on is starting to smooth things out, stopping there less and less, but still getting to those moments in time. So you have to think about it this way. I heard a quote once. They said that music is the space between notes, right? So on just a sheet of paper, you just see notes, but the music happens between the notes when everything is being played. Shooting is the same way, right? Shooting is the space between our 1, 2, and our through, okay? And what's going to happen once you start to understand 1, 2, through, and you can start to piece that together, you can take those 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3, we could say, and you can start to leave them, and you start to blend them all together, and they just look like 1. We got our motion down, and like I always tell kids, listen, I say, well, maybe we worked on this for 20 minutes. I say, hey, we just worked on this for 20 minutes. How many shots have we taken at the basket? And they'll say 0. I said, why would we ever do that? Why would we ever take 20 minutes of learning this and not shoot at the basket? And they'll think about it for a second. And usually they come up with the right answer. They say, well, because we're focused on the form. And that's what we want to be focused on. We want to focus on the process of this versus the outcomes, especially if you're starting new or you're making changes. The crazy thing about it, or not the crazy, but almost the cliche thing about it is you always hear process over outcomes, but process, if you're focused on that, gives you the outcome that you want. And that's one of the biggest things that you have to realize if you're teaching it or if you're going through it yourself. if you can be very process oriented, think about each shot kind of being, having a life of its own, then everything else is going to be that much easier. There's going to be ups and downs, right? If Rance was learning this for the first time and I brought him in this gym and Rance was shooting the way that he used to shoot way back in the day, and I said, hey, we're just going to go right to the hoop and this is what we're going to do, he's going to be extremely frustrated in seeing the result that he's getting, right? Because one, he doesn't understand it, probably hasn't grooved it enough. And he's going to look at it and say, well, I made more shots the other way. And that's going to be a common thing. You're going to say, well, I made more shots this way. And while you may have made shots to a degree that way, where you can get to this way by continuing to simplify things will really start to, it will start to benefit you in the long term, right? So everything is long term, always getting better, always trying to connect to what we're doing. So what we do when we go to the basket, before we go actually shoot at the hoop, what I do is just flat side and skinny side backboard shots. Ball has to do two things to go in every time. The ball has to go up and the ball has to go straight. In this drill, it's the one shooting drill where the closer you are, the harder it is. So right now I have Rance aligned with the block. He's going to go to his one position. He's going to drop down, maintain that full foot connection to the ground. And just to say, when I say full foot connection, right, he's not putting the weight on his heels. When he drops down, that weight's probably still a little bit more toward the front of his foot at the end of the day. But us having more full foot connection to the ground enables way more stability in terms of us going down with stillness and being able to stay still as that ball starts to move from the 1 to the 2. So we're at the 1, and what he's going to try to do is he's going to try to shoot 1-2 through as smooth as possible and hit this backboard in a way that he hits it on the way down so that the ball bounces in front of him. Go ahead. Good. And what all we're trying to do here, focus on the process of the way we're moving things, and then getting that basketball to have a nice connected path up so that we can get under it early, and then that basketball can hit that backboard on the way down. And what this drill is going to give you immediate feedback to is whether or not you're getting the ball up in the air. You can keep going, right? So if Rance shoots a shot, so if Rance shoots this shot here, now shoot it and don't shoot it in a way that it has to come right back to you and it won't hit the floor. I do this. It's a guaranteed sign, right? And he over-exaggerated, but it's a guaranteed sign that you didn't get under the basketball the best way that you could. You probably ended up pulling the ball more to that position. Now, because we're in a great position to show side view, go ahead and pull that ball to the 2 position, right? What I tell players is we're trying to create momentum to the basket as much as possible. On a pull, all of that momentum is going backwards, it's stopping, and then it has to go forward again. Can you be a pull shooter? 100%. You can shoot it any way that you want. But when it comes to moving the ball faster and faster, that becomes very difficult to do because your timing has to be better and better. I'm living proof. I shot my freshman year of college, I shot about 48% from 3. I think for my career, still in the 40s. But what happened is I was a pull shooter, right? I was a pull shooter, and while my coaches would scream at me, they say, "Shoot faster, Mike! Shoot faster! Shoot faster! Shoot faster!" There was a limit to how fast I was able to shoot because I was a pull shooter with big time direction change, and the more direction change I had, the harder it was to control. So I reached my ceiling because I didn't understand how to move the ball properly. All right. So we'll go just a couple more. 1-2 throughs. Ball bounces. One more. And this drill right here on the flat side, all about getting that ball to go up. Now, if we want that ball to go up and straight and get a similar drill, I'm going to move Rance over here to the sideline. So now on the sideline here, so move in right on that line. There we go. Yep. Now we're gonna aim for the skinniest part of the backboard up top. We're going to try to do the same exact thing, having that ball come right back down and drop, right? It is challenging. I've had players from all ages. I've had players, professional players. We've done things like this where they'll miss the backboard entirely. And it's okay because your target is probably 2 to 3 inches versus a basket, which is much, much bigger. And so when we're doing this, we're just concentrated on, can we still get under that ball enough to the point where it's going to bounce in front of us? And can we make it go straight, continuously hitting the skinny side of the backboard? So very, very simple, but very impactful in terms of being more focused, again, on process versus just the outcome. But it is giving us a small outcome, but not nearly as big as a make or a miss. Perfect. One more, Rance? And with money. Great. All right. So, well, no, not that one. There we go. All right. So we got our warm-ups and everything out of the way. Okay, our body positioning is in the right spot. Our hands are in the right spot. Just real quickly before we start to shoot at the basket, I'll take this ball from you. In terms of us gripping the basketball, okay, I just want to make sure we cover this I want as much full hand coverage of the full hand coverage on the ball as possible, right? Because the more coverage I have of my hand on the ball, the more control I have of it. Just like my feet, when I connect to the ground, the more I'm up here, even if I drop down this way, the less coverage I have my feet, the less stability I have. Well, the more coverage I have my hand on the ball, the more stability I have, okay? So when I'm here in this position, I also don't want to overextend my grip, all right? We want a nice, loose hand. Shooting is about being or removing as much tension from the body as possible. The more tense we are, the harder it is to do. The example that I give to a lot of players, I say, if I ask you to draw something, and I ask you to draw it, but hold the pen as hard as you possibly could, and we'll just say drawing something semi-intricate, right? It'd be extremely difficult to do. It'd be really difficult just to write your name holding that pen in a neat way. Our bodies are the same way when it comes to shooting the basketball. The more tense we are, if there's tension in our hands, there's tension in the rest of our body, we're pulling the ball backwards. All of that tension is very hard to repeat, right? So we're trying to create, this nice, relaxed feel to almost everything that we do. So my hand is on the ball, fingers are spread, but they're relaxed. And what I like to say is all fingers should be almost pointing in the same direction. So if I'm holding the ball right now, you see all my fingers are pointing down, even my thumb. My thumb's not out here pointing to a different direction. And the reason I want to make sure that happens is because I want to make sure it's easy for my hand to push through the ball, or all fingers are kind of pushing through the ball in the same direction. All right. So there I have my full foot or my full hand. See, I have like a little bit of a J here. And now when I'm at this 2 position here, all I'm thinking about are my index and middle finger pushing through the middle of the basketball. Okay. These 2 fingers right here, when I'm at my 2 position, if I remove my guide hand, that ball should be nice and balanced. And these 2 fingers here are what are doing the majority of the work in terms of how I'm pushing through the ball. I had this big realization not long ago. I pitched for the longest time. And as a pitcher, I could put that ball wherever I wanted. But every pitch I threw was some sort of 2-seam fastball, where I would just mess around. These 2 fingers were where they did everything. When I started to watch myself shoot more, I saw how close on my shooting hand these 2 fingers were. The more spread they get, the less I can feel. But if these 2 fingers are closer together, right, they almost work as one. I can feel it so much more. But I had so many different coaches over the years where they would tell me, they would say, hey, when you're shooting, can you feel it come off your index, or can you feel it come off your middle? And I never could. And I shot thousands of shots, thousands of shots. But if I focus on these 2 fingers being closer together here, right, when I'm pushing everything through, the rotation I get and the feel I get as I push through are night and day different. So don't overextend that hand, right? When you're here in this 2 position, a lot of talk about gap or no gap. There will be, no matter what, a little bit of one. That's the way our hand is constructed. It's not going to be up like this, right? Just like it's not going to be, where our fingers aren't going to be off the ball. Coverage of the ball, little gap. I wouldn't even focus on the gap as much as just let that ball relax in your hand. You still have control of it with your finger pads, but you're still trying as much coverage of the shooting hand as possible. Okay, so we're going to go to the basket. And when we go to the basket now, what we're going to start with is I'm just going to piece him together through a 1-2 through at the basket. And then we'll get through this pretty fast as we go through, because we already did it to ourselves. So 2, through. Beautiful. 1, 2, through. 1, 2, through. And what you can do as a player starts to get it is, if you want to maintain that call to get them really focused on what they're doing, is you just can pick up the pace on which you're saying it. So I can now bring him to 1, 2, through. And now with my words, I can kind of move him through points in time that I want him to be at. 1, 2, through. Good. 1, 2, through. Excellent. One more. 1, 2, through. Good. And now what I would have him do, I would say, Rance, all right, you got it down. What we're going to do is now we'll go through our slow motion reps. I just want you to feel. Feel. Over-exaggerate everything that we're doing and just feel how that basketball is moving sequentially. Great job. Good. And you can see Rance is doing a phenomenal job at maintaining his hips being down, ball starting to leave, or ball starting to move, and then the hips come up. Now, if I have a player, and this is one of the most common things, that every time they move the basketball, they want to come up. So as soon as that ball moves, they start coming up. 2 little key phrases here. 1, I say, I say, when we get down to here, right, what we want to do is we want to think about holding this level as long as possible and almost thinking like you're putting your lower body in jail. We're in jump shot jail down here. And we can't get out of jail until that basketball gets to a place where our shooting hand is under. Now, if they can't connect to that, what we can do is we can introduce a physical restraint where I would drop him down and I would say, I'm going to hold my hand on your shoulder until that ball gets to there. And when I move my hand, now you're able to release up with your hips. So it's a good way for somebody to feel. So we'd be here, I remove, and now he comes up. And I was just with a player for a couple of days in Miami working on something like this. And his big problem was the sequencing. He had never really worked on it. And so by me holding him down for a couple of reps, and we can do it as long as you need to do it, it started to get him to understand what it actually meant to actually sequence correctly. Great job. Good. Go one more. Slow-mo. Yeah. And we're through. Perfect. And you take these and you can move them out as long as you want to move them. We don't have to move them out super far here, but you can move them as to any distance within reason. And what you'll start to see as a player is that once you start to understand the order in which things are happening, you can create a great deal amount of power, even moving the ball slow, right? Just because we're starting to understand the sequencing and how things move. First thing that I start to do after we get it is we start to work on basically what our 1-2 throughs are, but getting just a little bit dynamic. So we're working on our drop. And what we're going to do is drop vertically. The very first intro to a drop is I'll have Rance go down, set your level first, and then we're going to over-exaggerate everything. So we're going to go into a sit. And then on that sit, what he's going to do is he's going to go drop, and he's going to sit thinking about almost like butt to heels. And then once he gets, and he knows he's not going any longer, he's not hanging out down here, he just gets that ball flowing up sequentially 1-2 through. So we go down, send it down one more time, and then we're off shot. Good. Don't worry about it. Down, shot. Beautiful. Great job, Rance. Sit, shot. So all I want Rance focused on is once we do that second sit, how still and how balanced can he be when he stacks that weight down? Good. Don't worry about makes or misses. We got the camera crew in here. I'm giving you no rhythm. Just focus on the process. Beautiful. Straight down. Good. And what you can do here is a little phrase that I use for players, because when we add little things, and you're going to see as we branch out, just adding small things, old habits tend to show up. Right? The smallest layers bring back the oldest habits. So when he goes down, Rance, what I want you to think about is wherever their hips go, make sure that ball goes. So when hips go down, ball goes down, but we stay locked in that one. And when you know you're not going any lower, now that ball can move. But that just will help a player sequencing-wise, because we never want to get into a place where if we drop down at the bottom. We never want to get into this place where we drop down, and then on our second drop, that ball starts to move and our body's still going down. Gravity wins every time there, so we want to make sure that's not happening. Drop, shots. Beautiful. So just sits, right? Doesn't seem like a dynamic movement, but it's a really good way to continue to connect us to the floor and to feel what it is that we're trying to do in terms of where our body is. His chest is up, his chin is up, his eyes are to the basket, and that ball is able to move up his body without him having to get out of the way in any shape or fashion. Just stillness all the way through. That's what we're after. Perfect. But now what Rance is going to do from standing straight up and down, he's going to try to hold that ball in his one from the waist up. He's a complete statue, and I want him to think about just falling or just melting into the ground. But when he does this, he's sitting back into his hips. He's maintaining full foot connection to the ground. He's actually going to pull his feet up off the ground just a little bit. You'll hear a small sound. But when he does this, he's going to just let his body carry down. So if I stopped him down here, he'd be in a really, really good athletic position and in a position to then move everything up through the shot. Okay? So one little thing, when we make these drops, make them in a way that keep the feet quiet. Okay? The quieter the feet, the less tension in the hands. But if the feet pound into the floor, you can feel, if you just pound this way, you can feel your entire body tense up. And what tends to happen with players is they'll drop, tense up, and then they pull this ball down with them. The moment you pull this ball down here like this, is you just sealed your fate in terms of how this ball is going to move up. You're going to have to pull up the body a little bit. But we want to keep those hands loaded, drop, quiet feet, lead to quiet hands, and now we can lead to get under that basketball. There we go. Great job. Beautiful Rance. One position, drive. Great balance. Notice how he's straight up and down, almost landing in the same spot every time. I don't go crazy over that, saying that we have to make sure that it has to be the same spot, but we're trying to get to as close to that as possible because we're trying to remove variability. If he's leaning left or leaning right, then everything else starts to get disrupted. Rance, what is the number one thing? Hold on. Where historically does your weight have a tendency to go when you drop? Heavy left. So right-handed shooters, for the most part, when we drop, or you can watch them in general, they like to lean towards their back foot. So as a righty, I would lean to my left. As a lefty, I would lean to my right. As a coach, when I'm watching him drop, go to your one, drop, and hold. Yeah. So I'm really just watching his shoulders. And you can tell with the shooter where they are. He's perfect here. He's ready to equally distribute through the floor. If I see this a little bit, I know that all that weight's on that foot. And it may not seem like a big deal in the moment, but when things start to move faster and faster, it starts to become a real big influence on whether or not that ball has a good chance of going in. So we'll go 3 more. Straight down. Shot. Beautiful Rance. Down. And shot. Last one. And shot. Now, if you have a player that's struggling to do this drop in terms of how they're dropping to the floor, and he's doing such a good job at it, then we make the distance shorter. So instead of starting straight up Rance, we'll just go 3 of them, start low, and then just go lower one more time. Sometimes that really helps because the reason it helps is if you have a player that's struggling to sit down into their hips, they get to initiate it into their hips from the beginning so they know the movement, and then they just send it down one more time. I call it sending the elevator down. Always send it down, don't send it up. Drop. Good, nice quiet hands. Down. Excellent. Last one. Down. Beautiful. And from here, there's countless things that you can do. I would say the majority of drills that I have that I use with players all come from moments on the court where things are completely made up because everything is made to tailor to the individual and what they're trying to feel. So what we'll do real quick, and we'll just run through them. We're just going to add a turn to the drops. So I'm going to have body to the side here. So now he's going to go through a turn, and all he's going to do when he makes his turn, he's just letting his body fall in the drop. What's up? Yes, straight up. So his body he's going to keep his body still from the waist up. He's going to make that turn drop, and when he makes that drop, eyes are going to go to the rim, and then he's up to the shot. Shot. Good. Now, like I just said, what Rance's habit is his one habit is to go a little bit left. What he did on that first rep and a little bit on that second rep is that as he's making this turn, he's going heavy left. Now, why would he go heavy left? Well, because if that's his tendency and all his energy is going to his left, right? This is going to be exacerbated in terms of what's going on. So Rance, when you make these drops, put an emphasis on maybe bringing things back to the right just a little bit. Drop, shot. Great job. So if you think about a player, when you're working with a player, or it's you yourself going through it, you have to know your tendencies. You have to be willing to almost audit your jump shot. Because if you know what it is that's going on, if you can feel what it is that is causing you some type of disruption, well, then you're going to be able to change it. And you have to think about when certain situations occur, if that's putting your body in a position that you're more likely to go back into the old habit, how can you start to correct it? Let's face the other way. Generally, we'll go 3 of them, I'll just talk. So generally, as a right-handed player, going this way much easier, right? And going this way is much easier because if I really wanted Rance to, and I said, Rance, I just want you to shoot without moving your feet, go ahead. His shoulder is already aligned, right? So when we have to turn to our right, it's why righties like going left so much. But we have to turn to our right. Everything feels a little bit easier because that shoulder gets aligned really quickly. Go 2 more. Good bounce. 1 more, Rance. Good. Excellent. And then we'll just do the final challenge on the drops. We'll face that direction. So now we'll add a really big turn to the equation. So let's go over the left shoulder first. Now, as a righty, because he has a really big turn here, Rance, what I want you to concentrate on this turn is getting that right hip to the basket. So don't shoot that basketball until you know that right hip is to the hoop. Go. Good. Beware of that left. Good. Go the other way. Again, now he's turning over his right shoulder. Historically, as a right-handed player, this is a bit easier. And then obviously, as a lefty, everything is reversed. Really good hand, but we'll end on a make. Eyes to that basket. Good drop. Excellent. Easy stuff. Easy stuff in terms of, if you look at it, nothing crazy is going on. But what Rance can be concentrated at one given shot, somebody can walk into this gym and they could be watching Rance do that. And they're like, oh, he's just dropping and shooting. But in Rance's mind, he can be thinking, I'm dropping into my hips. My full foot is connected to the ground. My hands are in the right spot. When I drop down, I'm pushing, leading with that basketball. That basketball is coming off there could be a million things that you're thinking about. Not saying that we have to think about all these things, but the detail within each shot, somebody like Rance that has worked extremely hard to be able to just make automatic, right? Somebody else maybe brand new to this is going to look or go through something like this and maybe have to go through that laundry list of things to say, I have to make this is right, make sure this is right, this is right, this is right. But as time goes on, it starts to just become who you are, right? And then you're able to make those real-time tweaks and finishes as you go. I just want to show one more of the drops before we just go into off the dribble stuff here. When we go into our drop now to really challenge the hands, I talked about having busy hands at the bottom if we have loud feet. What I want to do is we can start to challenge our hands by putting the ball in a place that's going to force us to really have to over-exaggerate how we can get soft hands or quiet hands. So Rance is going to hold the ball up here, and on his drop, quiet feet, bottom out, and he has to really bring in connect to bottom out to then be able to get his shooting hand under. What you'll see a lot of players do, they catch a ball here, the first thing that they catch, and they pull, right? Versus catch and almost guide this ball back. You can think about being like a shortstop fielding a ground ball and how they guide the ball in. If I was to get a pass here, I want to guide that ball back into my one position, bottom out at my level, and then everything goes through from there. Keep those hands locked and loaded. Good. Move that ball a little bit faster, Rance. Better. Nice. Get under that ball early. There it is. Now the best one. Go one more. And this is just putting him in a place where he's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, where everybody's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Nobody likes catching basketballs up here and then having to bring it all the way back down. But if you can get used to doing this, then if I just put this, I say, Rance, just start at shoulder height level, right? And now go into your drop, and then we're through, right? Starts to become a walk in the park. So everything is just about progression. Everything is about taking something that's difficult, right? And then making it easy, but making it easy in a way that mimics what we're doing actually in a game. You take something that's simple, make it complicated so that the simple stuff ends up being even easier or even simpler. Make the simple simpler, I guess. Excellent. So as we start to add movement, we go from our drops and then usually a transition. Now, not everybody's the same because we're at different places in our journey, but usually I transition into shots off of the dribble, right? And the reason that I do that is because if you shoot a bad shot off the dribble, it's your fault, right? You're in control from start to finish versus a bad pass and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we can maybe put it at fault of the pass or not putting the ball in the right spot. But off of the dribble, we can do two things. We can start to learn to move with the basketball and then learn to prepare with the basketball. And what you're going to see here is that what we did in the beginning mechanically, right, is such a big piece of shooting. And I think to me, it's a piece of shooting that even if you were to ask just a casual fan as you come through, I think they have some kind of idea, right? Everybody will come to you with different things. Oh, you got to have your elbow in and whatever. But the preparation piece to me is what separates everything, right? The preparation piece is what allows us to get to the mechanical piece that we just worked on. So when we go through this, it's so important that you understand the moment you begin to move, The moment that ball goes down on the floor, your shot begins in my eyes. So there's no wasted dribbles. There's no wasted movement. Everything that we do is catered towards us being able to be as repeatable as possible off of the dribble, and be just as consistent as we were standstill. The highest percentage shot, what's the highest percentage shot in basketball? Aside from a layup, free throw, right? Now, pretend you're going to shoot a free throw. Every person, if you were to take a picture of every person at the foul line, even a bad free throw shooter, but let alone a good one, right before they're about to shoot, everybody's right here. We shoot a highest percentage shot when we get back to this place in time. Our bodies drop, we're balanced, all that kind of stuff. Our goal is, hey, how many on the move free throws can we shoot? And that is what we're going to aim to do. So the very first thing that we introduce, I call them dribble drop shots. My main man, Rob, he calls them dribble hop shots. I think they're kind of the same thing. But I'm on a drop kick recently. I love this idea of connecting to the floor faster. So what we're going to do, I'm going to have Rance drop down in his level here. All right. What we're going to attempt to do is shoot a one dribble shot. So one dribble into the shot, but we're going to try to get our hands ready before our feet hit the ground. And the reason that we're going to try to do that is because once our feet hit the ground, I want the hands to already be in a position where they're ready to go. We know about creating space laterally, right? There's countless separation type drills or separation moves. And a lot of people create that separation to be able to get their shot off on the ground. But there's also the separation that occurs vertically. The separation that occurs because you're prepared and you can take advantage of early hands and getting up faster than anybody else can. But in order to get up faster than anybody else can, we have to prepare our hands and we have to connect to the floor quick. So we're dropped. We just start him in his one position. And what we're going to do is we're going to right hand dribble, left foot step. But when we do this, let's introduce that. We'll go straight ahead to start and we can angle it after. But we're going to introduce a back foot push. So right now, go both feet to the basket and I'll put all the weight on that right foot and then have that left foot dance around, right? That left foot is going to serve as the foot that pushes him forward. Now, when that foot goes back, his hips aren't going backwards. He's just placing the foot backwards because that is going to allow him to keep his space. So he's going to go foot backwards, heard. And now what he's going to try to do is go right hand dribble, left foot step with that ball and foot hitting at the same exact time. Now, why is that important on this first dribble? It's important because that ensures that the ball moves with us, right? Like I said, our shot begins the moment we begin to move. If he puts that foot back and dribbles, I did nothing with that dribble. That ball did not go anywhere, or my body did not go anywhere. So I want that dribble to go right inside that foot. You can almost think about the shooting elbow being attached to the same side hip. So you know exactly where that basketball is going to go when that dribble is made. One little sidebar here. Your body can only cover the space that it can cover, right? So I know a lot of times you'll see different drills of throwing the ball out. And I know in certain situations, 100% justifiable. But if I throw the ball out here, or just for the sake of go like this for me and reach out here, you're not on balance as you're moving. You're out of balance. The two ways we lose balance is if that ball gets thrown out or our head goes down, right? So we want to be able to move on balance, move stack, have that ball move with us so that when the opportunity presents itself, we're going to be able to get our shot off. It's so important. Your body can only cover the space it can cover. Learn to take bigger steps while being on balance and being stacked and keeping the ball close to you. So what we're going to do, and this is going to seem very blocky to begin with, but the only way he gets to this place is if that hand that's not dribbling is moving in front, okay? If that hand moves in front, he's now in position to get his hands on the ball sooner rather than later, versus go late pickup. Hand going out and then coming on the basketball. The longer it takes for that hand to get on the basketball, the longer it's going to take to get that ball up in the air when that foot hits the ground, okay? So piece it together, go dribble step, hold, and now he brings the ball to the one, and then we're going to drop off of this left foot onto 2 feet, right? So his shoulders are going level, 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 drop. So go stop, drop, and he's right there in his knee position. Each time, go 2 more, each time making sure that his hands are set before his feet hit the ground. And that's what's going to allow him, when his feet hit, that he's going to be able to get that ball out of there right away. This becomes extremely difficult for many. And for some, it's hard to understand why we do this. It's not a matter of me thinking in a game that Rance is going to be this early. but it's me knowing that the way that people play Rance now, when he's off the dribble and how quickly he needs to elevate, his hand being just a fraction of a second sooner than it normally would be, it ends up, how much of a difference does it make in terms of, especially on the elevation and stuff? It makes the biggest difference. So it's learning to move with your hands in front. And for now, we're just over-exaggerating the timing of when we pick up. So we'll go dribble, drop, shot. Each time, get back to that one position, hands loaded. Right hand dribble, left foot step, back to the one, feet hit, and let's move that ball right away. Good. Great job. Notice he's keeping his chest up, chin to the rim, drop straight down. Good. Be a little bit quieter with those feet and let yourself just exaggerate the drop. You know, I know you wouldn't, just so they can see. There we go. I just want everybody to be able to see just what kind of position you can get in. And I like exaggerating the drops early because the more we exaggerate them, the more we expect to understand how it is that we connect to the floor, how we sit back into our hips, where balance is going to be. If I had Rance exaggerate a drop without hurting yourself, exaggerate a drop, but only go on your toes. See what it looks like. It's almost impossible to do, right? So but it's fine. You don't have to. That proved my point. The lower you get, the more balanced and stacked you have to be, which means the more connected your foot has to be. But that motion of him going super low is just an exaggeration of the regular motion. You may think you're completely on balance by dropping to here like this right on your toes, but in reality, you're probably creating some type of ripple effect later on down the line that may be a bit difficult to correct. For some, it's not for everybody, but for the baseline of what we're trying to do, we're trying to take away movement versus add to it. We'll go 2 more. Hand moves in front, pick up, shot. Great job, Rand. Last one. And then we'll shoot 2 going left. And that's all right. One position, shot. Beautiful. And now when we go left, everything is just opposite. So now the weight is on that left foot when he makes that back foot push. Left hand dribble, right foot step, going to get that basketball, and then we're up through our shot. Beautiful. And what you can start to do is as you start to get the hang of it, why don't we go 2 reps right, 2 reps left, and then big step. So burst out of there. Show them what a couple is like 95% of the distance with the step, and then can you drop right off of that step where you're at? You can start to challenge the speed at which you're moving. Good. Let that ball move with you. Let that ball move with you. Excellent. So let's go left. Left for 2. That's awesome, Rance. Great balance. Now, Rance's habit, lean left. This is what I know as a teacher. I'm going to be watching him, making sure that he's stacking that weight going this way as much as he can. Awesome job. And what you can do here, just quickly, if you have a player that's struggling to move with their hands in front, we can add little things like hand preparation. So you've probably seen me do them on my page. If you follow Rob Fodor, you've definitely seen him do it. Probably seen a bunch of people do it at this point. But when you drop down, what we start to do is we start to add in layers to a simple movement. So any player starts to get that full work down, it becomes easier and easier. But what we can do is, well, let's challenge the hands to have to move even faster. And how do we challenge it? We make our hands do more things. So the first one that Rance is going to do is going to be the same full work, dribble, drop, shot, but he's going to throw a pass fake out to the right side. So let's go pass fake this way. He's going to go pass fake, and he still needs to pass fake and get back to the 1 position before his feet hit the ground on that drop. Good. Good. Keep those hands quiet in that 1, hand behind the ball. Good. Excellent. We'll go left with the pass fake. Very nice. Good. So he's moving with the basketball, ball's extending, he's bringing it back and connecting it to him. Connecting it back to him each time. It's almost like that 1 position. It's almost like that 1 position becomes a magnet in a sense. I don't know if I can walk into a gym and pick up a ball now without every single time I just go to here. No matter, even if I'm playing around, I'm always going to here. And one of the important things that I tell players, especially after we finish a session or finish finish a week together, something like that. Everything that you do is a habit, one way or the other, right? So we can be as intentional as possible right here today, right? We can be super intentional about everything that we're doing. What are you going to do the moment you leave this gym and go home? Because if you're going to go out there and you're just going to start throwing up shots and not being intentional about where your balance is or where your hands are, you're just building the habit in the opposite direction. So just be super intentional with every single thing that you do, no matter what. And you can see how good he is about constantly bringing the ball back to his one position. I will always remember getting a message from Rance within my Keep Shooting Academy of him sending me a text saying that he started to understand balance more while he was in line at Chipotle, I think it was, or a back foot push, something like that.
It was something like that. It was something to keep my chest.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like a chest step, chin up, and he was in Chipotle in line, and like it dawned on him as he was doing it. So it's one of my favorite stories. But like that, I'm serious. Like, where is your mind when you leave here? You're trying to develop those habits. The last hand clap that we'll do, let's go just one around the back to the right, one around the back to the left. So just like the pass fake, this is now just around the back.
Where you take it
wherever you want to take it. Just show the hands. Great job. Good. Beautiful. So on the 1-2, everything is going to be the same. I want Rance, let's angle all of these. So big step, dribble close. That left hand's going to move in front. I'm back close to that one position. Right foot comes around and drop. Now, and shot. Now what? When I make this, or when Rance makes this movement here, my level is set. When I go here, for the time being, I'm going to exaggerate that drop. So the same way you do dribble, drop, shot, sit down, so my shoulders drop, my shoulders should drop here as well. Because I want to put my body in the best possible position to be able to get that ball moving up and get underneath the basketball. So still focus on that good one position, and then trying to get back to that, back to that one position as soon as possible. Great drop. Good. Going this way with the turn, even to this degree for a right-handed player, it can be difficult. Good. But if you put your body in the right spot and you focus on the preparations, you're doing a great job keeping his chest up. Hands are early. That's good. He's in a really good place to be able to shoot what we would say looks like a stationary shot. Good. Great job. So we'll go left. Chest up, chin up, drop those levels. Good. Sink that left hip a little bit more. Good. Nice. Notice that wriggle is moving with him. He's going with it. Good. And shot. All right. And that's as simple as it becomes. Now, quickly before we go into transition to stuff off of the pass, our last little thing that I'll show off the dribble here will just be balance oriented, right? So that becomes pretty easy, right? We can throw hand prep in there too. We can do pass fake hand prep, round the back hand prep, all that kind of stuff off of 1-2. But what I really like doing off of 1-2 is adding bigger and bigger turns. And so what we do is we do things like this at the elbow. I'll just do the exaggerated one. So we're going to come here to the elbow, and what we're going to do is we're going to put our outside foot on the foul line, and it's going to be a dribbled step, early hands, turn, drop, and then we're up into our shot. And this is just another way that you start to add layers to everything that you're doing. Early hands, chest up, drop, shot. Good. See if you can drop just a little bit lower. Good hands on there. And again, we're just challenging the skill now. We're taking something very, very simple that we just did off of the dribble and then just making it harder. What Rance is doing a phenomenal job with right now is what he's doing with his eyes. Your balance is going to go where your eyes go. So the sooner you find that target, the sooner you're going to find yourself balanced. Go one more, Rance. Early hands, back to that one. Right there. Second foot hits. You already dropped. Get that ball going. And shot. Beautiful. Want to hit one that way, just so we can see. So now left foot will be on that foul line. Right hand dribble, left foot step. Now really big turn. And he did a good job of still getting that hit to the basket, though.
That's nice.
Yeah, that was good, though. And we're not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. All right, that's an important thing. We're not going to be perfect with what we're doing, but if our goal is minimizing things, if our goal is taking away things, we're focused on balance. Well, maybe our hands weren't great, but our balance is going to bail us out. We don't want to have to do 30 things perfectly to make shots, right? We just want to have to do 2 or 3, maybe one or 2. And that still gives us the best chance of making shots because of how we're prepared. So to finish up now, we started stationary. We started away from the basket, at the basket, stationary shots, off the dribble shots. And we're just going to give a brief introduction to shooting off the catch, right? And everything that we're going to do off the catch today is going to be drop based. We won't do like game speed movements today, because I know a lot of us watching this are at a place where we're just learning it. And there'll be time for Masterclass Part 2 in terms of as we start to get into the game or the game shots and how we want movement there. But I put a really big focus on our catch and drop timing within our catch and shoots. Now, to bridge the gap in our catch and shoots, I'll have a player start with the basketball, start drop just a little bit, put that ball out in that, and we'll just do a pullback and a drop. And what this pullback, starting this ball out here does is it starts to give us the feeling of what it'd be like going to get that ball and bring it in. So all Rance is going to do is he's going to bring that ball in and drop simultaneously, thinking about hips down, ball down, and then we're up to our shot. And shot. I'm feeding into a shooter's worst nightmare because I keep stopping Rance. And I have him getting a little bit of a groove, and then I stop, and then we come again. Yeah, there you go. Excellent. And so within 3 more. So within, it's been so cool to watch Rance, especially within the Keep Shooting Academy, to go through this stuff because, one, his ability to get up and do the work every day has been huge. Every day, getting out there, putting in the reps, putting in the time, seeing him do it has been amazing. But the best players in the world, the best at whatever they do in anything, what I'm starting to find out, the more people I meet and the more places I go, is they ask questions. They ask really good questions, and they're very inquisitive about what it is that they're trying to do, right? Did I do this? Am I understanding this right? I've started to think of things this way. If you want to be great at anything, you have to be an independent thinker in a way, because you have to find things that connect to you, right? You have to find things that make sense to you. I'll give you everything. I'll give you everything I have, right? But sometimes the way I say things, it may not resonate the same exact way. And this is where, as a teacher, I've been so lucky that I've worked with so many players like Rance all over the world virtually that I get to learn from players like him, because he's going to say something to me that makes more sense, right? Of like, oh, I never even thought about it looking at it that way. So one of the coolest things about going through this is the collaboration part to me, because I've learned just as much from Rance, hopefully. I've learned just as much from Rance as we've gone through it. So one more pullback drop. Again, I stopped your flow. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter. Okay. One more little bridge before we go into the final one. Start dropped, hold that ball on its side, and you're going to spin straight up and then catch, drop. Don't even let it hit the ground. Yep. Don't even catch, drop, shot. Yep. So when I found this drill, I've worked so many clinics, and you can just keep doing it. I've worked so many clinics, and everything comes down to understanding, like, how can you get players all doing something and being active and working on the good things. And I found that starting to do these with players in the beginning does such a good job of keeping players engaged, because they can get a bunch of reps up with it and yet still be focused on all the good stuff. So what Rance is doing such a good job here of is catching and dropping at the same time, bringing that ball back down to his one position. And every time he brings down that ball to his one position, when he knows he's not going any lower, that ball moves up. So, I mean, as simple of a drill as it is, it's such a good way for you, especially if you're by yourself, to work on your timing and how you're trying to prepare. That's one. Give me one more good mate. Beautiful. And now what we'll do is we'll start to go in off of the cat. So what I like to do with players in the beginning is, this will be our spot, is I think about almost like the tennis approach. If you watch tennis players when they're when they're working on things, that tennis coach will stand there and just give them soft tosses, right? And it's soft toss and it's rep after rep. Okay, I'm working on my backhand, I'm working on my forehand. Well, right now we're working on our timing of getting to our one and then our feet hitting the ground pretty much at the same time, like making this all start to blend together. Much easier from a timing perspective to do it with a nice soft toss in the beginning. You can get a bunch of reps in doing it. So I like to start close and then work our way back. So let's just do that. I'll start close and I'll gradually work my way back, and you just focus on the timing of what we're doing. Right? Anybody that has played T-ball knows when you start with the T, right? And you start with the T and you gradually start to work your way back. And once you can hit that ball off of the T, right, then you start to hit that ball off of a soft toss. And once you can hit that ball off of a soft toss, you can start to hit that ball off of a pitch. And everything just has a progression. Like I said, everything has some type of sequence that's going to allow you to start to groove the habit. Don't be afraid to go slow when you're learning something, because the more you can connect the dots and what you're doing, then the faster your progress is going to happen. So very small ones here. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Load those hands. Excellent. And Rance is doing a really good job of exaggerating the drop right now. But what's going to happen as we start to go faster and faster is that drop will be less and less exaggerated. So in the beginning, we exaggerate. But what you're going to find is you'll be able to generate just as much just dropping to here as you would dropping to here, right? And it's just a natural progression of it. 3 more. There's a phenomenal book called The Art of Learning. And in The Art of Learning, Josh Waitzkin talks about learning a jab, last one. And when he learned a jab, how in the very beginning, a jab was kind of this long, drawn-out motion for him that took a lot to gain power. But over months, he learned how to position his body and how to turn and do all these different things and ground himself to the floor in a way that made a jab be super fast, super efficient, but just as powerful as something longer. And that's the exact same thing that we're trying to do here. So let's just go 5, and now we'll put it all together on a pass. What? Good. That's one. Just kidding, this is the last one. And perfect, yeah, that was good. And then when you start to do these, you can add in anything, right? You can add in turns. I can have, if I wanted, I can have Rance start here, throw him a pass, and he catches, drops this way off of a step drop. Variety of things that you can do. Before we go, just a little cheat code in terms of what you can do for a player off of the pass to get them more comfortable. I gave him nothing but chest passes, okay? If you want to almost cheat the flow of how things happen, bounce passes. Because bounce passes have that ball hit the ground, come right up into that shooting pocket, and that momentum, he gets under, and then under that, or a handset and under that ball much, much easier. So if I have a player struggling, they don't know that I do it all the time. But if I know that they're struggling, I'll start to feed them bounce passes instead, because it forces so many good things to happen in terms of how the flow starts to go through the shot. So this is really, a chest pass is much harder to get into in terms of how you get under, just like pulling the ball down from here is hard, versus a bounce pass here, much easier. Yeah. You see how he just took that momentum from that pass all the way through the shot. I didn't even ask him to do that, but he did it. We call these momentum shots, but shoot it like a jump shot. Good. 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 And then go drop. Last one. You leaned on me. That's one. Good. So little things like that. This is kind of, what would you say, scratching the surface on everything, right? And this is a lot of information, right? But if you can get this down, right? Well, first of all, I would love to work with you if you really want to learn it. I would say this about it. Anybody that really wants to learn it is going to learn it, but you have to be all in on what it is that you're doing. He's a prime example of it, right? I mean, I have videos up on my YouTube of shooting workouts with him. You have a much better idea of how he really shoots the basketball, even though he still shot really well today and within this weird environment. But if you really want to do it, it's going to work for you. It will work for you. It's worked for so many players, from kids this big all the way up to players in the NBA now, which is crazy to say. So if it's something that you feel like you want to get better at, you want to do yourself, or you want to teach, I would recommend doing it. I would recommend coming in. I would do everything I can to help you understand it in your own way, because I understand that we're all going to see things, experience things. We have experience things differently. We're coming from different starting points, all of that kind of stuff. So thank you for being here today. This was a lot of fun. Halfway through, we even said that we could probably do a whole bunch of these, which I think we're going to have to start to do, because for me, it's fun that I don't have any time constraint. I can kind of just go. And thinking for the next one, maybe we bring like four other guys from the Keep Shooting Academy to really show everything off. So thank you for being here. If you have questions, obviously let me know. I'm sure there's going to be a ton out there. And I look forward to working with you in the future. Keep shooting.